When you look at any power ranking, opinion piece about the Texans or the NFL offseason, the Houston Texans are often at the top of the list of winners, of they spent the most guaranteed money. People love the Texans offseason. I love the Texans offseason. I think they did a great job this year. And they spent $144.5 million in guaranteed money this year. And DJ Bieneme just put out a piece about this on ESPN.com. And, it's funny to think that this team is just how far they've come in a year. And then to read, really the first time in my memories, Paul, to see a quote like this in DJ's piece about, it's fun to have those high expectations, Cal McNair said. We embrace them. Basically, we're starting a new season, putting a new team together with D'Amico, and they're starting from scratch. So it's exciting, but we got a lot of work to do. But the beginning of that, when they talk about high expectations, even to see Cal McNair or the Texans ownership group acknowledge those high expectations, that's not something that often I feel that this franchise has ever done. That the 9-7... Maybe it's the 9-7 is the 9-7 Brian won the AFC South Brian, all that stuff from Bill O'Brien that he was given to Brian T. Smith on a weekly basis is what's living in the front of my mind from this. But even just acknowledging that the expectations are high this year and that you're excited for it, I appreciate from the Texans ownership group, I would say.
I think they've done it before, but I also feel like they had this entitled sense of self that no matter the expectations, people would remain interested.
That's fair.
And then the last 3 to 4 years happened and they realized, oh, that's not actually the case in a football crazed state. We actually can turn people off. There have been expectations before. 2011, 2012, going into 2013. They signed Ed Reed. I think they acknowledged them. But they haven't dealt with them in a very long time because no one took the Texans from 2014 through 2019, the Bill O'Brien era. No one ever took them seriously, even with Deshaun Watson under center. So things are a little bit different. There's more optimism for sure going forward, because D'Amico Ryans is flat out more likable than Bill O'Brien by a very, 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 very wide margin. And in CJ Stroud, you have something to believe in on the same level that you did have with Watson before.
And if not, way more.
Yeah, and it's weird. With Watson, I remember being here. There were expectations, but in 2018, they lost the first 3 games of the season, and everyone was out. People didn't care. They won 9 in a row, and no one cared. It was stunning. But truly, no one cared. The ratings reflected that on the morning show that I was doing over at the flagship. We would talk about them. They won 9 in a row, and it was interesting. People just didn't seem to care. It also seemed to coincide with a lot of drama for the Houston Astros, bringing in Osuna, trying to do what they had done the year before. But it was strange how little this city cared about a team that had its best ever winning streak that season. And now it's, I think, a totally different game that we're in when it comes to this team. I
would definitely agree with that. That it's a whole new world. The kind of the apathy that you talked about with the Astros a little bit last year in the postseason is probably what we saw back then with the Texans. And that's why even if the Texans started 0-3 this year, it will not be the same. I expect anger for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I think people like this team. I think people want to like this team. People didn't want to like a Bill O'Brien team.
That's why I don't think people will get angry about it then. I mean...
Or maybe not angry, but they'll freak out.
Just be more invested?
I think they'll be disappointed. I don't think they'll be angry or freaking out if they have a slow start this coming season.
Really?
Anger isn't really something that
I think they'll be like, same old Texans. I don't think it'll be like, whoa, what is going on? Because everything they've given you over the last calendar year has been great.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, maybe they have a little bit more grace just because it is like a little house money-ish because of like how quick it went from this team's like an absolute disaster cluster F to they're in the playoffs winning by 20. Like the fact that happened that fast, that probably does buy them a little bit of time, but I do think that this is the first time that the Texans have like legitimate Super Bowl aspirations or like Super Bowl expectations probably since that 2013, 2012 kind of era.
That is true.
Because I don't think any of the Watson O'Brien teams were viewed maybe
2018 going into the year.
Maybe one. Yeah.
There was excitement. And again, 0-3.
Yeah.
It was just dead on arrival, essentially. And 2019 was weird because they had a good year.
Yeah.
But along the way in that season, where I want to say they were 12-4, they had that game where Lamar Jackson just beat the ever-living bejesus out of them.
Didn't they also have a game against the Broncos that year?
Yeah.
They lost by like
Bleep
30.
you too. That's what Bill O'Brien said in the tunnel.
I was
That's
at that
right.
game.
You were.
The best game ever for Drew Lock.
Best game ever for Kareem Jackson, the Jackson revenge game. I think he had a fumble return for a touchdown.
He did.
In that one. And
it was the week after they beat the Pats on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember I was like, well, geez, this is where the Patriots are now. Yikes. But then they go in the playoffs and they had the 24-7 lead. And I remember I was watching at the 710 ESPN Seattle studios, waiting to start the pregame show for the Seahawks and Packers game. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing really well. I was getting excited. And I was a little bit jealous. I was like, damn, am I about to miss out like the greatest playoff victory in Texans history? And then all of a sudden, I was just like, boom. I was like, oh, okay. Nope, didn't miss it at all.
They're losing at halftime.
They were losing at halftime
of that game.
It was 24-7.
That's a remarkable game.
That's why, like, I almost don't count it as like a crushing Houston sports loss because
You
it happened.
should.
No, but the fact it
was
happened
gone so
quickly, that's like they didn't have a halftime lead. They led in the first quarter.
Yeah, it's not like the Chiefs like slowly came back and kicked the game-winning
like
field goal and
yeah, it didn't like break your heart.
Yeah.
It was just so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they let Bill O'Brien stay after that.
Which is crazy. And then they give him a contract extension after that?
That off the top of my head, I don't remember.
But like, yeah, he should have been fired in that moment. There's no doubt in my mind.
I think the pandemic happened. Maybe the pandemic saved Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, because that was
right after.
It was 2 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he only got to coach like 9 games the next year.
4 games.
4.
Oh, 4 games.
He was out quick.
Even less.
He was 0-4. They lost to the Vikings. I was at that game. And then the last game of the Bill O'Brien era. It was a quick turn-up. But the expectations for this team, they should be high. The offseason hype is higher than ever before. Like, to your point about 2018, 2019 with the Texans, it's just foggy memory, I'm sure. But I don't remember seeing the talking heads picking Deshaun Watson and the Texans to be in the Super Bowl. And you're going to see the Texans be a super popular pick.
Watson got sad violins after 2019 because he's stuck with Bill O'Brien, and throughout 2019 because the Texans stunk and he was somehow an MVP candidate on a 4-12 team.
And they traded Hopkins too. That was another part of like
David Johnson.
Get this man some help.
Yeah, what a life we lived for a while. Do you think the Texans have about $30 million in cap space after the restructures of Titus and Shaq Mason? Do you think they're going to do anything at this point?
I'm not holding my breath. I do get the sense that some people feel they need to make a move.
Why? Like for what?
Because people are greedy.
We talked about this, or Dell and I talked about this. I don't know if this counts as making a move or the move that people want. They probably should use some of this money to address the secondary.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
that is like the move. And again, I don't know if signing Quandre Diggs to like a 1-year, $8 million deal will count as like moving and shaking, but that would greatly help their chances, especially as a team that is like we were talking about for the first time in a decade going to have actual Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah.
What if they extend Nico Collins? Is that going to make people happy? Is that going to make people pipe down a bit?
It should.
It should. I would be like, okay, because I have a hard time just seeing why they're creating all this cap space, if not to do something.
I'm with you on that front.
But it might just I
feel like something's impending.
Yes, but I'm keeping the door open for the Nico Collins because that'd be kind of in line to what we've seen them do for the rest of or for most of this offseason.
And at some point, you have to start paying your own players.
Yeah.
It is, losing Grenard is not the worst thing in the world. Losing Cashman, who was on a 1-year deal. And the Texans, under Nick Casario's leadership, have not had the opportunity, besides Grenard, to even have a player worth giving another contract to, besides Kaimi Fairbairn and John Weeks. Like it has been the depths of the NFL, and you should reward your own players. And I don't know how the fan base feels about Nico. Like how many of them believe he is a true number one wide receiver? I do. I don't think he's in that category of the top guys in the league, and I don't think you're going to have to pay him like that either. You're not going to have to pay this guy like Tyreek and Jamar and Justin Jefferson. He's going to get a hefty contract, but I mean, paying him $20 million a year like a Deebo Samuel contract, I'm good with all of that.
Especially paying him this year. Before, after his first really good year as a pro, if he plays another year and then you have to pay him off of what we would assume is 2 good years, then the price goes up.
He might be just gone.
Yes, exactly. I mean, with how Caserio runs things, we don't know. He seems like he has a price and he sticks to it. Mm-hmm. And so if they think that CJ Stroud kind of is not made Nico Collins, but that is what unlocked Nico Collins was having CJ Stroud, then it's like, well, how many other wide receivers can CJ Stroud make into a Nico Collins type production? Not specifically his type of player because his skill set is rare, but to put up the numbers he did with a quarterback like Stroud, you can see where maybe that means he walks.
Yeah, I hope not. I love Nico Collins. I don't think this means that they're trading for a wide receiver. I think Texans fans need to kind of get over that.
No.
I don't either.
I'd be surprised.
I think they should have gotten over it already.
Agreed. T. Higgins is going to be a
good receivers.
Yeah, T. Higgins is going to be a Cincinnati Bengal.
Yes.
They've made that very clear.
They just don't make trades, the Bengals.
Yeah.
It's rare.
And Stephon Diggs, another one.
Hard pass.
You shouldn't want
man.
him, guys.
Hard pass.
You shouldn't want him.
You can if they traded for T. Higgins, I would be good with it. I would be excited. I think he is still can be in a very elite wide receiver.
But then they should trade for Justin Jefferson. The Vikings would be idiots if they traded Justin Jefferson, as would the Bengals if they traded Jamar Chase.
The only guy that I think is semi-realistic that I also, and I don't think this will happen, but I also would enjoy.
Brandon Ayuk?
Yes. You've worked with me long enough to know. Brandon Ayuk is the only guy. And again, I think it's more likely that they use this money to re-sign Nico Collins than they do to actually trade for Brandon Ayuk. But that is the one where I'd be like, okay, now they're cooking. And there should be no belly aching from Texans fans about they didn't make a splashy enough move. Nope, that's it. That's the splash move you should make. You probably still shouldn't actually make it, but that's the one that you would make.
How do you feel if they let's go to this scenario for a second? The Texans trade for Brandon Ayuk and give him a fat contract. Nico Collins, he walks. Because you're not keeping both of them.
No, you're not paying both.
You trade for T. Higgins, you trade for Stephon Diggs, you trade for Brandon Ayuk. You're not keeping both Nico and that wide receiver.
That's what makes the wide receivers trades like kind of ridiculous.
Just keep Nico, right? I have no doubt that he can be Brandon Ayuk, if not better.
Really is determined by what you're getting in return for Ayuk. Say you trade for him and you don't give him an extension. Would that potentially drive the asking price down from the 49ers? Because, I mean, if you're not extending him and you think that he is going to end up walking, does San Francisco look at themselves and say, all right, well, we'll just let him go for a second-round pick or something like that? Mm-hmm. But that seems unrealistic as I'm talking it through. Like, the 49ers would want to get a first-round pick in exchange for Ayuk.
If you were going to make that trade, that trade actually is the T. Higgins trade, because we just saw this with the Tennessee Titans, right? The Titans just traded a third-round pick
for L'Jarius Sneed
and like a fifth or a sixth for L'Jarius Sneed and a seventh, and they paid him. So if you want to only trade minimal draft capital, T. Higgins would be the guy you trade for. Like, if they traded like a fourth-round pick for a year of T. Higgins in this offense, sold, but not happening.
Yeah, I'd be in on that.
Also, if you're the Bengals, though, it's like,
why?
Wait, so this is the team we're trying to beat in the AFC?
Yeah, who beat us last year?
Hard pass.
No thanks.